Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Eric and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is May 5th, 2021. Happy Cinco de Mayo to anyone who is celebrating. But to us, May 5th is another very special day in the Red Donkey Projections community because exactly 1 year ago today, we started our channel and released our first 2020 presidential prediction. We want to thank everyone who has remained for supporting our channel and for liking and subscribing and leaving comments. We try our best to read all of the comments you leave on all our videos because we love taking constructive criticism and doing our best to improve. And of course, I want to thank my partner Lucas, who, is dives so deeply and gives very insightful analysis, making everything super clear.
Thank you, Eric, and you as well. We're gonna come out with a later video today. A video by itself for 1 year since starting this. But today we're gonna launch a couple videos today to celebrate. So you're gonna get a lot of videos more than we usually post because we have stopped posting a bit. But anyway, with that being said, we're gonna be discussing today about Liz Cheney and how the Republicans are moving to oust her from her current position as the uh, chair of the Republican conference, the number three Republican. And we're going to be taking a look at that. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So, who is Liz Cheney? As most of you already know, she is this more anti Trump Republican. She's definitely not a moderate. She's not like Susan Collins anti Trump, but she's more of a conservative anti Trumper. She does hold pretty conservative views, such as being, pretty hawkish, pro business. She's known as being neoconservative, and, her foreign policies, she doesn't really agree with President Trump that much of it. But the first time we really saw Liz Cheney being a very anti Trump Republican was during the second impeachment of President Trump, where we saw Liz Cheney go ahead and vote to impeach him, which I guess was a little bit unexpected because we did see her vote in line with Trump. Most of the time during his presidency, during the Ukraine, the first impeachment trial, she didn't vote to impeach him. But I think we are seeing a change now as she is becoming a lot more outspoken about being against President Trump. Maybe not even on policy wise issues, but more on like all what he's been saying. For example, like speaking out against him for the baseless election fraud claims, and saying that he was lying. That has led to a lot of criticism from members of her own caucus, as well as, and I'll move it to now, Kevin McCarthy. And Kevin McCarthy, he has been saying that it was not because of her views on it, but more of the messaging point of view. But I'll let Eric explain a little bit more on that.
So my stance on this is that I feel like you know, on both sides, but in the case of this video talking about the Republican Party, they've, ever since Trump became president, a lot of candidates that have been running in lots of different races, have done their best to align themselves with Donald Trump. Some people call it Trumpism. I'm not going to go to that extent, but long story short is that especially after this voter fraud claim, Republicans are, they really, or at least most of them, Liz Cheney being a notable exception, really want to, support Trump no matter what happened to him. And I feel like they're really trying to oust Liz Cheney on two words, basically. The fact that she said Biden won, which, as Lucas explained, is true, and any counter argument against it is very, very baseless. You know, Lucas explained Liz Cheney is a very conservative Republican. She agreed on Trump on most things, so it's kind of shocking to me that they're trying to oust her based on a true fact for the most part.
Right, and it does support how divided the GOP has become, especially in this post-Trump era. You have representatives that are they might not be moderate, but they're very anti-Trump. Adam Kinzinger from Illinois is a great example of someone who runs on a very anti-Trump message. But you also have the more far right, the die-hard Trump supporters, in Congress, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. But you also have this group of representatives that they support Trump publicly, but internally, I think they truly are not really that supportive of his policies, because it does seem like a lot of Republicans are very afraid of getting primaried by a Trumper, running against them, because Trump is still pretty popular within the Republican Party, which we will discuss later, because it's actually waning a little bit his support from Republicans in the nation. But let's take a look at the first time they tried to remove Liz Cheney. It actually failed miserably, and this does support my point that it does look like there's these representatives in Congress that on the outside they might be supporting Trump and saying that he's so great, or even calling for saying that there was voter fraud or whatever. But internally, they actually don't feel that way. The vote to remove Liz Cheney as a representative, let me pull it up, it failed 145 to 61, which I guess 61, that's pretty minuscule compared to what you think, compared to how many people are speaking out against Trump, how many people voted to object to the election results. I'm not sure of that exact number, but it is very interesting to see that she didn't get removed the first time, even though she did speak out, she did vote to impeach. The Republican Party in Congress still wants her there. It's just people aren't being that vocal about supporting her, or that vocal about being anti-Trump. All right, I've got the numbers pulled up here. So 138 Republicans actually voted to object to the election results from Pennsylvania alone, and then Arizona, you had 121. Compare this to the number of people, the number of GOPers that showed GOPers, but the number of GOPers that ended up voting to remove Cheney from her position as the leader of the Republican conference was only 61. So that does show a huge divide. Possibly that was because the vote to remove Cheney was an internal one. It was a secret ballot. No one knows who voted what. But when it's out in public, like this objection vote, it was a huge margin of, a huge number of Republicans that chose to object to it, probably because, they're being watched by people, and if former President Trump doesn't like what they're seeing, he might threaten a primary challenge to them.
So, for the purpose of this video, let's assume that Liz Cheney is going to be ousted, because it's very, very likely. And this may even happen within the span of a week, May 12th. She may already be voted out by the Republicans from her role as, third ranking member. She will still, in theory, will be able to keep her position as representative from Wyoming, but she just won't have that ranking member leadership if she gets ousted. But speaking of keeping her congressional role, that also may change, because as the headline reads, this controversial fist bump that she made with Joe Biden when he was walking down the aisle during or after his presidential address, this really sparked a lot of controversy. And as the ad says, it will launch a lot of negative ads, because they see that Cheney is aligning too much with Biden, because usually during these addresses, Republicans and Democrats try to stay kind of distanced and not really interact with one another to kind of keep the partisanship. So there are quite a few, people that are trying to challenge Liz Cheney in the primary of the upcoming 2022 election. And of course, if they want to win, they kind of have to be the kind of opposite of Liz Cheney, which is aligning more with Donald Trump. So the contestants that really want to challenge Liz Cheney are all kind of, more aligned with Trump. And in the state of Wyoming, I'm sure that, they will fare well with that strategy. Let's take a look at some of the polling that came out recently. So, keep in mind, Liz Cheney is the incumbent ranking member at this point. She is getting crushed by almost all of the primary, if not all of the contestants. Anthony Bouchard, for example, 21 to 28. Let's take a one-on-one between them, 21 to 54. So you see, there's a huge dislike for Liz Cheney, even in her own congressional district. So despite her having experience, despite her being a fairly conservative Republican who has voted with Donald Trump most of the time, she is not going to fare well in her coming years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's because Wyoming, the people of Wyoming especially have a very, or Republicans of Wyoming have a very high approval rating for President Trump. They view him as very favorably, or sorry, former President Trump. They view him as being very favorable. And that could spell a lot of trouble for Liz Cheney, because these two state senators, I believe, oh no, one state senator, one state representative, they're both very they're very pro-Trump, and they're running behind him. And as you can see here, Liz Cheney does have establishment support and, Paul Ryan support, John Barrasso. But the other candidate, Chuck Gray, I'm not sure where Anthony Bouchard is on here. I guess he didn't get any notable endorsements yet, but he's racking up most of like the Trump based support. So this could spell trouble for Liz Cheney in the future. But let's now head to the U.S. House election results, because we're going to now be discussing who Liz Cheney's successor might be. And the leading representative right now to replace her is Elise Stefanik, who is from a pretty safe Republican district. Although looking at it right now, since redistricting is this year, she could get gerrymandered out. Although it could end up being Claudia Tenney who gets gerrymandered out. But anyway, who is Elise Stefanik? So she's a representative from New York. She has been very, very pro-Trump. She made herself pretty well known during the first impeachment trial. First impeachment trial. She was one of the, I don't believe, she was part of Trump's congressional defense team, along with Doug Collins, who were there arguing in support of former President Trump, that he was not guilty, or they tried arguing that he shouldn't be convicted. But she's been very, very pro-Trump, making false claims of fraud, trying to overturn the election results, objecting to election results, the college votes, the electoral college votes. She's been very, very pro-Trump. And, she also voted to sign the amicus brief from Texas. And most recently, and I believe she tweeted out an hour ago, that President Trump now supports her for the conference chair. Likelier than not, she will probably be the replacement. We haven't seen another person go up against her yet, because she has gotten a lot of that pro-Trump House support. She's gotten a lot of support behind her, including Steve Scalise, who's the number 2 Republican. And I wouldn't be surprised if McCarthy would also back her as well, in the event that, because as Eric mentioned, we could be seeing a vote to oust Cheney pretty soon. Eric, is there anything else to add here?
No, but you hit the nail right on the head of McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the Republican House, is of course, along with most Republicans in the House, really dislikes Liz Cheney, and he's been very vocal about it. So he is going to look. He's going to look for a House leader who is very closely aligned with Trump. You know, to keep the ideology that he wants in the House as much as possible.
Right, and I guess if Liz Cheney does end up losing her job, which it looks like she probably will, it kind of does show how very few anti-Trump members of Congress there are now. Like, I don't know, it's very hard to name a few. The only one I can think of right now is Adam Kinzinger, maybe David Valadao to an extent, but it's really looking not good for the anti-Trumpers in Congress right now. And that does mark the end of this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. If you like our content, please subscribe. And we'll see you in our next episode today.
See ya.